pads, a pencil, and an eraser.
What's
Convincer.
Hey, April, we love Winnie's yellow boots.
Okay.
Is it nice and warm down there today?
It's been
Grace?
it's been nice. It was a little cool this morning, but then it was beautiful. You know, we've been lucky.
On the air, folks.
Okay.
David, could you send Kai the link to the participants, just in case?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The Selectmen's meeting's called to order. I'm going to open the public meeting and take a roll call of the present Selectmen. Pat?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Excuse me. Ed?
Aye.
Sheila?
Here.
And Alan. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourselves? A lot of people may not know who you are. Board?
Huh?
Select board?
Our board?
Yeah. Yeah, just go ahead and introduce yourselves.
All right, I'll go for Sheila Matthews Bull, Selectman.
Ed Hutchins, Selectman, Cape Porpoise native, been here too long.
I'm Pat Briggs. I'm also a longtime resident of Kennebunkport now, 20 years. Yeah.
All right.
Mike Weston, Selectman, Cape Porpoise.
Alan Daggett, Chair, Cape Porpoise. Excuse me. Okay. Good evening, everyone. This is a virtual board of Selectmen and Budget Board meeting. We're using the Zoom conferencing format. The webinar ID is 944-5640-4317. April, I'm going to turn this over to you so you can go ahead and open up the Budget Committee, and please have them introduce themselves.
Okay, I'm April Dufo. I'm the chair of the Budget Board, and I'm going to open the meeting. And if the Budget Board members will introduce themselves, we can get started.
Grace Adams, Budget Board.
Michelle
John.
Powell, Budget Board.
John Dykstra, Budget Board.
David
Dan
Benner,
Beard.
Budget Board.
Dan Beard, Budget Board.
Alan Evelyn, Budget Board.
Hi, Leffler, Budget Board.
Stedman Seavey, Budget Board.
Is that everybody?
That it?
I think we're missing David, but
David's not, David's muted.
Dimitri.
Yeah, and David is muted, but
And he's the one who got me connected, so he's out there somewhere.
No, David James is muted.
I saw him earlier.
All right. Oh, okay.
maybe he can't hear either. Anyway, I'm going to turn the,
And David Benson, where, have we heard from David?
is David.
It's here.
David
Oh, okay.
James, raise your hand if you can hear us, David.
Dave James.
Okay.
Yes.
Dave, you need to unmute. There you go.
Okay, that better?
That's better.
Yep.
And David James is here. So I'm going to turn this over to the town manager to have her present her budget.
and Dimitri is here as well, so I just want to make note for the attendance.
There he is.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, Dimitri.
Good evening,
doing?
Dimitri.
Hi.
So welcome everyone to our first budget meeting of 2021. I appreciate everyone's patience as we go through this virtual format. As you know, it's a lot of different departments who will have information to provide to you. And so if you need anything, then feel free to raise your virtual hand or your physical hand, and we will make our way around to you. So to begin with, I'd just like to go over the budget document itself and the schedule. So everyone in their packet should have had a budget schedule that has all the dates related to the budget. And as you can see, we are in the middle of the page, which is March 4th, our first budget meeting. So next week, we meet again at 6 for a joint meeting, and we will have the rest of the operational departments present information. And then we will have a Board of Selectmen meeting following that. Then on March 18th, we'll have a joint meeting and we will have the presentation of the capital request, as well as town committee, outside agency, and the social service report. And that will just be a full budget meeting. And then the fourth Thursday, the selectmen will then meet to vote on their recommendations. And then they will have their regular selectmen's meeting. And we will then forward those recommendations to the budget committee, who will meet on April 1st. But there will be no joking about the budget. And you will vote on your recommendations. And so if there are any differences in those recommendations, we come back on April 8th and hopefully come to an understanding. Either people change their mind or we go with two recommendations. And then the warrant will be signed by the second selectmen's meeting in April, which is April 22nd. So we'll have a draft for their review that first meeting. And then the budget kind of goes into hibernation while we go into voting mode. And then we go to the June town meeting on June 12th for the authorization of the budget. So does anybody have any questions about the schedule?
Nope.
Okay. Some other notes for everyone. The page numbers are on the bottom of each page. You have a table of contents. You also have an index by department name, so it's alphabetical because this budget is put together in an accounting format. And so people wonder why things are where they are. But it's set up in an accounting format. And so if you want to do it by the alphabet, you can look at your page location by department alphabet on page 1, or your budget category on page 2. The blue pages in the beginning are your information, introduction. The yellow paper is the analysis and discussion. The salmon or orange colored paper is the expense department total, so if you want to look just by department. And the purple is the capital information. And then under the revenue tab, your green paper is your revenue budget. And then you have a tab for your commitment history, which has the valuation as well as revenue information. So if people could turn to their commitment history tab, which is page 61, I'll just review that briefly. So this is the Fy22 tax commitment. As you can see, we give you some historical information. You have FY19, 20, 21, which is the year I'm currently in, and then FY22. So we've broken the municipal budget out between operations, capital, and debt because I think it's best to look at it that way. You can see the differences over the years. The education assessment and the county assessment are the true numbers for those previous fiscal years. For FY22, these are estimates. The proposed budget for the education system came in at 4.15%. So they are still going through their budget process. I'm not sure where it will end up. The allocation of the education budget is done mostly through valuation. So it's hard for us to estimate what that percentage will be for Kennebunkport until everybody's valuation is figured into that. But that's what we have estimated, and the county assessment we have estimated at 3%. So that's the total expenditures, just over 23 million. So the non-property tax revenue are all the charges and fees that we take in that are not related to property tax revenue. The next line says TI Dock Square. TI means transfer in. So Dock Square parking lot is a enterprise fund. So the expenses and revenues stay in that fund. So when we transfer from Dock Square into the general fund, that's what that means. It's a revenue. So things that we pay for with a transfer in of Dock Square are anything related to expenses related to Dock Square or maintenance downtown. So this year, for example, there's an additional $40,000 because we're going to be paving Main Street related to Dock Square. So I've included that revenue as well. The fund balance is what we take from our positive balance from previous years and use to help offset taxes. We had gotten down to $200,000 a year. Last year, we went up to $600,000 in order to balance the budget and not have a tax rate increase. This year, I'm talking about $225 is the number, which is a large decrease from last year. The capital projects use of fund balance, we do have a reserve for capital projects that's based on how much we have left over each year. If we have over 18% of our expenditures, then that balance is transferred for the capital reserve, so we know how much is available. Last year, we transferred in $325,000 in order to, again, balance that budget. This year, we're looking at a $225,000 transfer. And then special revenue is, again, another transfer in. So the Recreation Department has two budgets. It has a general fund budget, which we'll review, and there's also a special revenue budget. And so we use some of the revenue from programs, especially things like summer camp and childcare, to help offset some of our labor costs in our general fund budget. So we decreased that last year because the pandemic had a big impact on our ability to program and generate revenue, and we're looking at a similar level this year as well. So you add up all your non-property tax revenues, and you've got $3.3 million. If you subtract this $3.3 million from what's necessary for municipal, you see what your net municipal commitment is. Commitment means what we have to commit to taxes. The net commitment for education, municipality, and county is $20 million. Our valuation is estimated to be at about $2 billion. And if we use our formula, we're looking at an estimated mill rate of $9.91. So that just gives an overview of that commitment sheet. There's a lot of information on that, and I wanted to go over that. Does anybody have any questions on that? Okay. So the other thing to know is your budget sheets, the descriptions are below each line item. You'll see the date that the budget sheets were printed, which is February 19th. It'll say that at the top right of your budget sheet. So that means when you see FY21 year-to-date column, those expenditures were as of February 19th, which means that it's about half a month of expenses and 3 payrolls, or about 62% through the year. We also, at the end of each department, have a graph that Jen has done to show you how those expenses in that department are broken out. And then under your social services tab, nonprofit budget requests, our social services subcommittee has a memo and a recommendation list, and that's what's in your budget, and all that backup information is there. Okay?
Very good.
So tonight our goal is to do our budget overview and go through departments administration through Harbor Master, which is page 127. And then, as I said, next week we'll follow up with additional departments. First, I want to thank my staff for their assistance in developing the budget that's before you. I'm always proud every year of the work that we accomplish together, but I want to make sure everyone recognizes the hard work that everybody did to pull this budget together. and especially Jen Lord, who works tirelessly to pull all these things together. And Tracy O'Rourke this year had the joy of putting the budget packets together. So tonight, I'm going to share my screen now and move to my budget presentation. Can everybody see that?
Yep.
Yep.
I only have about 1,000 pieces of paper here in my little cubby. So here we are, FY22 budget presentation. And, oops, I'm trying to move you all because you're in the corner of my screen now. So here we are with Kennebunkport by the numbers. We are considered a small town and our year-round population reflects that. However, we do swell with a large seasonal population, and we do have a complex set of services for our population. You can see that right now our valuation is at $2 billion. We currently, our ratio is, for valuation purposes, is at about 68%. So we're starting to get to about 2/3 of what our ratio is. The state does let us certify at 10% above that, and so we will be certifying at 76% this year. The budget process, although tonight we are beginning our first meeting, it begins way before tonight. The process began months ago as we started discussions with departments and setting goals for the coming year. The budget process will continue until the warrant is authorized in April, and it will culminate in the authorization from the voters in June. A year ago, our budget was focused on capital planning, including reserve funds for the Cape Porpoise Pier, roads, sidewalks, vehicles, equipment, a new town hall, and renovations to the village fire station. We were also on the verge of finalizing our plans for the village parcel, and we're set to begin the implementation process. All that planning was turned on its head with the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic. Planning and projects went on the back burner as we shifted gears to deal with more pressing issues. And here's some of the issues that we were dealing with this past year. This included a freeze on spending. We had to quickly generate online services, go to virtual meetings, have employees work remotely, work tirelessly at public health education, and a host of other activities I never imagined we would undertake. 2020 was an exhausting year for the town, for its residents and its employees. It was working 7 days a week to keep the wheels on the bus, never mind driving the bus to any destination. During the calendar year 2020, we had many unexpected expenses to combat COVID-19 and safeguard the health of employees and residents. We were fortunate to access some grant funding, and you can see the grant funding we got in at $158, but the expenses were $256,000, and so we had to look at ways to reduce spending in order to take care of those unforeseen needs. Our FY21 budget deliberations were put on hold after only 2 meetings. The Board of Selectmen turned their attention to emergency orders, public spaces, and maintaining operations. When we finally did get back to the budget, it was the end of April, and we all met virtually for a very different budget outlook. The direction was to decrease revenue projections, lower budgetary expenses, and increase the use of fund balance in order to have a flat tax rate for fiscal year 21. All of this led to a net impact of about $1.1 million on the proposed budget. So here we are today. Our FY22 budget is similar to past years. The entire municipal budget, the entire budget is estimated to be approximately $23 million, and municipal operations account for about $8 million of that. 56% of the budget is education and county services, with education at almost 51% and county at just over 5%. If we take a closer look at the municipal operations, it's easy to see we are a labor-driven operation with almost 53% of the budget reserved for personnel and benefits. Capital expenditures equate to about 13.5%. Debt service is around 9%. So the remaining 25% are for supplies, professional fees, repairs, insurance, and other operations. Here's another slide to show this breakdown. The FY21 revenues are similar to other years. The majority of our revenue comes from property taxes of the state of Maine. Municipalities are not allowed to charge income or sales tax and are therefore limited to property tax. Excise taxes, charges for services, and miscellaneous income make up about 12% of our revenue, and only 2.25% comes from the state of Maine through intergovernmental revenue. In preparing our revenue budget this year, staff have reviewed all revenue accounts, including their historical performance, as well as collections during the pandemic. The revenues have been adjusted to reflect our best estimates, considering current economic activity, the proposed state budget, and behavior patterns during the pandemic. Our budget drivers this year are about $724,000 in total. These are the top ones that make up $690,000 of those expenditure increases. Under planning and development, there's an increase of about $175,000. This consists mainly of the addition of a full-time planner position and technology costs related to the administration of short-term rentals. The selectmen will be bringing forward a short-term rental ordinance for consideration by the voters in June. The new ordinance would require anyone renting a home for less than 30 days to obtain a license and comply with the regulations. In the revenue budget, we have $115,000 in short-term rental licensing revenue to help offset this cost. The planner position is needed to not only address the short-term rental ordinance, as well as tackle a variety of planning efforts that have been put on the back burner, including sea level rise, village parcel plan implementation, and implementation of zoning related to our new comprehensive plan. The police department budget increase of about $54,000 is comprised of changes in employee participation in health plans, the fulfillment of a vacant sergeant position, and returning to a full payment schedule for our E911 dispatch contracts with York Police Department. Our solid waste increase of $70,000 is the return to a full year of recycling. The fiscal year 21 budget included only 6 months of recycling, and this increases the funding for a full year. Public Works increase of about $56,000 is related to the reclassification of 25% of the wastewater engineer's salary and benefits to the Public Works Department, and the change in employee participation in health benefits. Mike Claus will discuss this in his operational budget review. The contingency account contains all the salary increases and benefit increases related to union and non-union personnel. The current union contract expires on June 30th. Normally, salary increases would appear in each department. Because the selectmen will need to negotiate the contract, the funds are kept in contingency until the contract is approved. The capital account has increased just over $200,000. It includes funding for all infrastructure, building, and equipment projects throughout the town. The FY22 budget invests in roads, sidewalks, vehicles, infrastructure, and planning. Here's our 5-year history of capital funding, showing that we're between $1.2 and $1.4 million. I believe it's imperative to continue our investment in assets and not bleed capital to feed the operational budget. In this budget, we have $450,000 in capital reserves, $200,000 towards the Cape Porpoise Pier project, and $250,000 for our radio towers and equipment replacement. Equipment is funded at $56,800, including $50,000 for our fire department air bottle replacement program and $6,800 for technology upgrades in police vehicles. Our capital vehicles are funded at $318,000, including $160,000 for fire apparatus reserve, $42,000 for a police vehicle replacement, and $116,000 towards the replacement of our 2004 International Tandem Axle truck. Roads and sidewalks are funded at $519,000, which maintains the 48 miles of roads and over 6 miles of sidewalks. Different this year is our special projects climate change plan. These are some photos that we've taken in the past couple of years. This special project would allow us to undertake data collection and analysis on private and public property that will be impacted by rising sea levels and climate change. Understanding which infrastructure and properties will face damage to water influences will be imperative as we plan for future infrastructure investment and examine potential solutions. The planning staff, along with our town engineer, would work with our regional partners, including Southern Maine Planning and the Kennebunkport Climate Initiative. The debt service payments in FY22 will decline slightly. The entire debt service schedule is on pages 6 and 7 in your budget books. Note the large payment in fiscal year 2025 is a portion of the village parcel payment. It was bonded for 5 years with a balloon payment to give the town maximum flexibility for planning. We plan to bond it again and amortize it over an additional 15 years. The next debt retirement will be in 2024, and it is a sewer bond. The last one to retire is the new wastewater bond, which will retire in 2041. Here's a snapshot of the FY22 expenditures. We reviewed this on the commitment sheet on page 61. As I said, county and education are estimates only. The non-property tax revenue is up by the $115,000 in short-term rental licenses. We've discussed the transfers in and the reduction in the use of fund balance and capital reserve fund balance, which is a total decrease of $475,000. Usually I'm asked how this will impact the tax rate. Since we don't know the education and county assessments at this time and the valuation won't be finalized until June, we are guesstimating. To get the property tax rate, we take the entire authorized budget, subtract any available revenue, and we divide it by our taxable valuation. That tax rate is then multiplied by a property value to generate a single tax bill. Here is our estimated tax commitment and the valuation as we described on the commitment sheet, and you can see that the mill rate increase in total would be 46 cents. If all of these factors are true and we assume a 1% valuation increase. This is lower than the anticipated rate increase, which was $10.03, or a 58-cent increase, which was the financial projection brought to the selectmen on December 10th. So I am glad that we were able to be lower than that, although certainly this is a budget that is much higher than last year's 0%. If you do average the two between last year's 0 and this one, the average over the 2-year period is 2.46%. So with that, I'll ask if there are any questions at this point.
Nope.
So then we will start going through the budget. I'm going to ask you to turn to administration, which is on page 63. And I'm going to have Jen begin with finance and some general comments about the budget.
Hi, everyone. I am going to share my screen real quick with you. Can you all see that?
Not yet.
Loading.
Yeah.
Not yet.
Okay. So
It
this
says,
is-
it
No.
says you have started, but it doesn't show it.
it doesn't?
No.
There it
There we
is.
go.
Not
Everybody got it? No?
yet.
Yeah.
No.
Not yet.
I do.
Okay.
There it is.
There you go.
Okay.
Very nice, Jen.
Am I good to go?
I
Go
think
for it.
so.
All right. So I'm just going to run down some things that you'll find throughout the budget that's going to be consistent with everything. But first, we'll hit a couple stats. Of course, I give an update of what our townwide budget is for fiscal '21. And I also included the carry forwards that the selectmen authorized. That was $127,864. And just a little bit of info about our online transactions. We, approximately, there was 78,115 transactions in fiscal year '21. That was an increase of 60%.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is a lot of that home sales or?
No, that's just different licensing your
different-
vehicle, paying real estate, taxes.
Building permits that, oh, wow, considering, wow, all right.
Yeah, so with COVID, we tried getting everybody to try doing more online, and it worked. It worked
Okay.
because we were limited in the office and whatnot.
Huh.
Let's see, tax bills. Just in case you're curious, I thought that this was interesting. We had 61 accounts, real estate accounts go to lien, which was an increase of 12%, so about 7 accounts. At this time, there's only 22 still outstanding, so that's good. We're getting them slowly. Sewer bills, there were 59 accounts that went to lien. That was an increase of 126%, or 33 accounts. To date, we are at 20 accounts outstanding. So we are collecting, we are getting them. It's just, I think everything slowed down a little bit with COVID. So on this page, I'm giving you some acronyms that you'll find throughout the budget. Through the benefits section, you'll see ICMA, International City Managers Association, Maine.
Jen, we haven't moved on to that page. Oh, here I am. I'm on it now.
Oh.
We're just a little slower, that's all.
Oh, sorry. Okay, so acronyms from ICMA down to MTCMA, those are just different organizations and retirement accounts that are related to the benefits throughout the budget. So and that is in section, after the personnel section in your budget, you'll see benefits, and these is when these will come up. GFOA, we got, that's government finance officers, things like that. Then you go down a little further, retirement health savings, the RHSP, FSA, flexible spending account, and HRA, health reimbursement account. Those are found in the insurance section on page 79. All right, I'm going to flip. Tell me when you guys get it.
Ready.
Everybody good?
Not yet.
There we go.
Okay, we are now.
Okay, so now just a little bit about Maine State Retirement. This year, the employer contributions for Plan AC is going down 0.2% to 10.3, and the Plan 1C is going down 0.8% to 15.2. Employees' contributions for AC is 7.05%. For the Plan 1C is 9.2. And then the new plan, AC age 65, is 7.8%. I'll wait a second.
Okay.
We're good.
We good? Okay.
Yep.
So our health and-
wait. Kai. Hi.
Yes.
I would like to know if everybody who works for our community makes at least $15 an hour or more.
We have some part-time people, some are people who do not make that. Full-time people, yes.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions on that, or? Okay, so our health insurance that we offer to employees is administered by the Maine Municipal Employees Health Trust. We are on a PPO 500 health plan. We budget for an 8% increase starting in January of 2022. This calendar year, we saw no premium increase, so that is great news. So throughout the budget, if you see any adjustments, it's for some may stay the same if people have not changed their options. And then we also have a health reimbursement account administered by Group Dynamics. Any questions on that?
No.
All right, well, here we go.
Moving right along.
All right, everybody good?
Good.
Yes,
Not
ma'am.
yet.
Oh, you're all done.
Oh, did you see it?
All right, thank you, Jen.
All right, thanks.
And Dave Powell, you're gonna have Jamie ready to go? And so while you're getting Jamie ready, the administration budget covers the town hall if you are in the middle where the customer service windows are, as well as the finance and town manager budget. So that is all in here. The planning and code on the other side of town hall is in a separate budget. Overall, I would say the majority of the administration budget was fairly flat. You will see a decrease at the end of the administration budget of $24,000. That is really related to, on page 68, the credit card fees. So last year, when we were making our amendments to the budget at the end of April, beginning of May, we knew we would have to do more online services and wanted to encourage people. So we did budget for credit card fees, not knowing what that might entail. So we had $30,000 in the budget. As of the middle of February, you can see we had spent about $6,000 on credit card fees. And so, I'm sorry, $3,000 is what we spent. So we've taken that down to $6,000 for the coming year. We do not pay for credit card fees on real estate taxes or on sewer bills, for example. So we did take some of those payments that we think are easy for people to do by check, and they can do them online but pay the fee themselves because those are much larger fees. And so we are reducing the credit card fees, which has had the biggest impact on the budget. Jamie Mitchell is our new town clerk. Jamie, do you want to say hi?
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Jamie.
Tracy liked working with me so much that she wants to sit right outside my door now.
I heard it.
So Arlene retired in after Thanksgiving weekend. She came in and announced she was going to retire, and so it was a big surprise to us. But Tracy was willing to come on over, so we started looking for a new town clerk. So Jamie has been on the job for not too long, although she is quickly learning. So Tracy is in the background to support her through her budget presentation, or if you've got questions. But I'm going to turn it over to Jamie and let her do her town clerk presentation, which is a part of the administration budget.
Great, thank you, Lori. So I'm going to try to share my screen here and hopefully. So hopefully everyone can see that.
I can see it.
Perfect. So during the last year, under the direction of the town manager, the clerk's department not only helped navigate the world of social distancing, but we also supported our citizens in doing the same, helping them navigate and learning a new normal while maintaining a business as usual standard. Business as usual, I just threw some facts up here for you. 46 couples actually took out licenses and got married during the time of COVID, which is amazing.
Nice.
As you can see, and one of the things that I've heard the most about that I'm kind of terrified for is, clamming licenses sold, pretty much before the town hall even opened last year. Victulars and the liquor licenses, as businesses tried to navigate, kind of stayed on par of where they have been in the past. As the town worked hand in hand with businesses to navigate the protocols and guidelines placed by the federal and state governmental bodies, on the clerk's end, we saw an increase in registration and beach passes, things like ATV registrations, boat registrations, as more and more people hunkered down in their homes, and part-time or summer residences actually became longer-term stays for many of the owners. The largest portion of what we have in our budget this year is actually training. This is a crucial part as I wade into the deep water of all things clerky, but also to offer required refresher courses for the staff that I have. We have implemented a lot of new processes to inventory and guide our office expenditures, and we're exploring ways to be more green and sustainable. So we've tried to keep the cost of supplies as low as we think is possible to still keep our well-oiled machine running. For elections this year, it's actually, thankfully for me, as I, it's my first year, we have less elections because we have the annual RSU 21 budget referendum in May. The June election, there is, to our knowledge, not going to be any state issues on the ballot. So it would be our standard municipal election and our town meeting. And then, of course, as we all know, it's a non-presidential election year, which will enable us to limit what we need as far as staffing, ballot clerks, and supplies for those things. So overall, what we are asking for is a budget of just over $12,000. It's the most conservative figure we can establish to ensure proper training materials and the election process requirements. You can see it's about $2,100 in supplies, the training that I spoke of. The $5,100 is for the salary and wages of the election officials, the ballot clerks, the warden, the moderator. And then the $5,000 ballot machine and legislatively required supplies is, we can't really play with that number, but we're just going on what they tell us that we need to, we really want to ensure that everything is a smooth process and there's no concern. We are putting forth a budget that's a decrease from last year of about $3,300, with the dedication of a continued goal of improving efficiencies and skills while we're being conscientious of recycling resources and limiting unnecessary purchasing. So for the most part, that's all I have for you. Unless you have any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer for you.
Good presentation.
Thank you.
Yes.
Alan?
Yeah, on your licenses, you showed liquor 37 and 5 daily. What does 5 daily relate to?
My report showed that the department issued 5 daily licenses last year. I would have to defer to Tracy. She would have more knowledge.
A daily license is if someone is doing a catered event or a special event and they do it off-site, usually we get a ton of those because they take place for weddings and golf club events and things like that. And 5 is a very small number, which shows that people weren't doing those kind of activities.
Now, some of the restaurants that are doing curbside also are selling spirits off premises. And is that a different license, or have we just not looked at that?
You mean that they are selling them to go, so you can take them with you? So that was a special order by the governor to allow that under their normal liquor license. Normally that has not been allowed. So I'm assuming that will go away when the pandemic executive orders go away, but I guess we'll wait and see.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Hi,
April.
April.
I have a question. I saw on your chart that you have a school budget election in May. Is that the district budget meeting, or are we actually voting the budget in May now?
No, it's the budget validation.
Okay.
Any other questions under administration?
Great.
I'm not-
Thank you all for your time. And if I haven't met you and you're in the office, I'd love to meet you face to face.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Jamie.
Jamie.
So next we have Warner up. There's Warner now.
Warner.
So-
Good evening.
Werner is going to do the planning and development budget along with zoning board of appeals and growth planning. But I understand he wants to do the planning budget first. Is that true, Werner?
Yeah, so I'd like to just, talk through, a little bit of my presentation and do planning and development first, and then cover ZBA and growth planning, if that's okay with everyone.
So planning is on page 85. And I'll turn it over to you, Werner.
Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and do a share screen here. All right, can everybody see that first slide?
Yep.
No.
Dan, you can't see it?
All I have is scheduling made easy. I don't know what that means.
I would suggest
there we are.
not clicking on that. There you go.
Wait a minute, I just murdered that.
Yeah.
Are you all set, Dan?
All set, thank you.
Great, thanks. Yeah, the internet takes a little bit longer to, to spin from Cat Mousem Road here, so. So good evening, everyone. I'm Warner Gilliam. I'm the Planning and Development Director here for you all. So I'd like to give you a little bit of a recap of our year, share some data with you, and then give you a vision of what is in front of us. So as in my department, we have code enforcement, planning, and assessing. We have 4 full-time dedicated professionals. With myself in the role of planning, code enforcement, and departmental duties. I represent the town as a board member with Southern Maine Planning and Development Commission, as well as I'm also a board director at the state level with the Maine Building Officials Association. Andrew Welch is our principal code enforcement and building inspector. Becky Nolette is your certified Maine assessor. And Lisa Harmon provides administrative support to the department as well as our various boards. We also have Greg Reed and Patricia Saunders that work with us part-time. Greg does billing inspections and Trish does a lot of minutes for different boards that we have here. So last year, we really had no idea what was going to happen in the construction world, our meetings, practices, business community, or the schools. So COVID got real very quickly for all of us. And so like we reacted, we scrambled for supplies, PPE, safety for staff and the residents was paramount for us. So we vacated town hall pretty quick. We pulled retired computers out of storage so that staff could work from home. And we transitioned business into the virtual world, doing Zoom check-ins, with each other, on a daily basis. So then as we came back, we had our challenges that continued. How were we going to support residents and the businesses? As many of you are aware, we had a forward-thinking group of business owners in partnership with the chamber and the town, worked on putting together the Kennebunkport Promise, which were these frontline policies and procedures that really communicated with the world that Kennebunkport was doing its best to keep everybody safe. And then with the blessing of the selectmen, we were also able to facilitate temporary flexibility for businesses with outdoor dining allowances, additional signage, and sharing of resources. So construction didn't really skip a beat in town, as you can see here from looking at past history. Despite COVID, we issued a total of 580 permits last year, which was just down 11 from the previous year. Project costs overall were only down around $100,000 in total construction value. What we found is that as people vacated major cities, Kennebunkport and Maine became the safe haven that many retreated to. Property sales went into overdrive, and many homes were renovated to make them more functional places to live and work. A huge shout out to the builders and the tradespeople. They really have been doing a great job, working with us and keeping our office and inspection procedures safe for all. So we continued our inspections with clear protocols for staff, which included only having 1 or 2 individuals in finished buildings for final inspections and limiting our on-site interactions. Our summer took on a new role with following up on COVID-related complaints and providing education to business owners when things weren't quite right. Overall, we had tremendous support from the local businesses doing their best in this world of constant performance standard changes. You'll see there, interestingly enough, how meetings and office appointments there dropped off pretty quick there in April and May as we figured things out. As you can see, we kept up with our field inspections and did so in a very safe fashion. So what does next year bring us? So our planning needs, as Lori mentioned, took a pause for sure last year, but we have many tasks in front of us. The multitude of future planning needs that we have is quite a bit daunting. And we know that it needs careful time and consideration in order to be properly addressed. We continue to look for efficiencies in our daily processes. However, one cannot continue to add additional projects, responsibilities, and tasks without negatively affecting others. So here are some things that we have coming before us. So floodplain management. I anticipate the technical issues that we've been working through with FEMA to be resolved over the coming months, resulting in an anticipated July 2022 implementation timeframe. Adoption of these maps is going to be a requirement in order for us to remain in good standing with mandatory flood insurance. Many projects, particularly at Goose Rocks Beach, will require additional review and permitting. Our continued update to our comp plan. So growth planning took a pause there at the beginning of the pandemic, from working on the update to the comprehensive plan, which we, once things came back into play and we realized that, the world was continuing and revenues were continuing, we started back up again. They've been working with a consultant team on the inventory chapters of the comp plan. So this summer, we're going to focus on developing the implementation of that plan, which these are the strategies that help guide many of the policy directions that the town looks at over the next 10 years. So our market analysis and valuation update. Lori spoke a little bit about the certified ratio, of our valuation. So we began evaluation and market analysis update last year. Again, put a pause on it at the beginning of COVID, and we're slated to be restarting that again shortly. Every 10 years, towns are required by the state to review their valuations. Our last major update happened in 2009, so we are due for that update. In order to have equitable tax values, the state rates us based on a yearly analysis of our sales. So as you learned, our ratio has slowly been slipping from where we started at a 91% to where we're down to that 76% that we're able to certify at. Performing this adjustment to values will prevent us from having to go through a full reval, such as what was needed in 2009. This will also give property values or property owners their full value for their homestead exemptions, which due to our falling ratio, they currently don't have. The short-term rental ordinance has been diligently worked on by town staff and the Board of Selectmen, including many hours of input from the public. This ordinance will require additional staffing and resources to be properly implemented. Within the budget, much of the expenses associated with the operation will be offset by revenues collected. This is a new venture for us, and I do expect that once we have a few years under our belt, we will be able to refine our fiscal needs. Our climate change master plan. I think no one's really more aware of the realities of climate change than coastal communities. It's coming upon us, and we would be unwise to not be forward-looking at how Kennebunkport will need to adapt. This plan will begin to bring solid strategies for our infrastructure, our properties, including our natural resources and our residents. Our village parcel. With the information that came out of the visioning process, we will continue with putting some meat to the concepts that were envisioned, and we'll begin seeing how we start to bring those to reality. So I think it sounds a bit daunting, and that's certainly because it is. We don't often look to adding staff given our space and resource constraints. However, these are all important forward-looking projects that require additional staff power behind them. Consultants only get us so far. The meaningful interaction and work really comes from having dedicated staff who become a part of your community, talk to your residents, and understand their challenges. We've often had great ideas, but in some ways we've lacked some of the horsepower in order to move those forward and implement them. These are issues that we have to address, and they've been declared as priorities by the Board of Selectmen. So this budget asks for us for the resources that we need to begin starting these processes. I'm happy to answer any questions that you all may have on the budget.
Well, Werner, you have a lot on your plate between climate change and I know how hot the real estate market has been, especially, what is it, the #1 town in Maine to live in now? 70%.
Well, it's always been the number one town to live in.
Exactly.
That's right. Yep.
But there's been a lot of press lately. And some of these programs, especially related to climate change, I can see where you're going to need more staff.
That's going to be a big one, climate change.
Yeah, it is. I've never seen the tide so high.
Yep. Yep. And we have access to a lot of great resources, but, as I said, it requires that additional mind space, additional bodies to start to, work on some of those projects and really give some good depth to them.
Alan?
Yeah, just on the short-term rental aspects, just wondering, are there some, under some circumstances where someone applying for this would not get a license? What about the enforcement side of it? That's just curious if that was part of what you were looking at.
Sure. Yes. Now that's been, that's been a big consideration. Is not only the language of how the ordinance has been put together, but practically speaking, how do we implement it? How do we make it work? And so to that end, we'll be relying a fair amount on an online service for for a good bit of the administration and the permitting piece of it. My goal is that I have no desire to add another piece of paper into the files, relative to this. So to that end, the goal is to make this a digital process where we'll be working with a consultant group and a software company to that will administer a good bit of that. Now, with that being said, it still requires staff time to give the final approval of those applications. But the hope is that the majority of that, of the data and the information that folks will have to put in will happen electronically beforehand.
And this software also allows for a complaint process that can be online or via phone, and letters that will be sent out and violations tracked.
Yes.
So and again, I knew you were all working on this so is this something like, I guess what they do in Camp Ellis, where properties are sort of inspected like an inn or a B&B? And I think this is a good idea with Airbnb today and all this. I do think there should be someone overlooking constant short-term rentals. But I also think people should have an avenue to rent their homes or whatever if they choose. So can you just give me a little background on it? I'm just curious.
Sure. Yes. So incorporated into the draft ordinance, there are some standards related to to safety. We've kept those requirements to life safety items. These are things like smoke detectors, carbon monoxide detectors. We want to make sure that folks are that they're utilizing legal bedrooms, things of that nature. We want to make sure that they have addressed their parking needs on their property. We're fortunate enough that that Kennebunkport does not have a plethora of rentals that are in poor shape. I would say that the market doesn't support poorly constructed or poorly maintained rentals. However, with that being said, this will give us an avenue. It'll give us a mechanism in order to track complaints, to deal with those in an efficient manner. This is something that the police department will have access to, fire department. Obviously, code enforcement, clerk's office will have access to this information.
7:05. Good evening.
I think one of the things that that we've that we haven't had, and that this that this will address is just a clear way to track information that comes in. Every department kind of has their own different process and system for complaints, and this will help make that relatively uniform and give an outlet and a process for dealing with those.
Any other questions? David, James?
Yeah, Werner, probably a question that you haven't even given a whole lot of thought to, but going back to the updated real estate valuations and how that ties into climate change and sea level rises and the effect on sea level rise on coastal properties and their market value. How does that tie in with this updated market value assessment?
That's a great question, David. It doesn't, because it's the sales analysis looks at actual sales. It doesn't project, into the future, what the effects may be. So the market adjustment utilizes, past years of market sales. But I think, your question there is a valid one, and I think that, as we move forward in looking at the effects of climate change, that is one of those things that Kennebunkport does need to be looking towards, and asking those types of questions of, what does sea level rise do to your property valuation?
And that is something we're working on with Southern Maine Planning and other regional communities is they've received a grant to assist us in looking at the economic impact of sea level rise on our area.
I know, tough question, but it's going to happen.
It is.
Yep, agreed.
Any other questions? So if not, I'm going to take us back to page 71, which is the Zoning Board of Appeals. And Werner?
Yep. Yes, so the Zoning Board of Appeals on page 71, you'll see there's an increase to represent actual expenses there. The Zoning Board of Appeals is one of our volunteer boards. They hear appeals of the Code Enforcement Office, but they also administer and review some of the smaller conditional uses such as home occupations, residential rooming accommodations, and things of that nature. So the budget numbers there reflect the closer to actual expenses.
Any questions on Zoning Board of Appeals? Seeing none, I'm going to go to page 75, which is the Growth Planning Committee.
And for Growth Planning Committee, we've kept our funding request the same as we had last year. This is a line item that allows for growth planning to obtain additional expert and professional assistance should they need any in the course of doing their work on the comprehensive plan. And this budget request is the same as we held from last year.
Any questions on growth planning?
Nope.
Nope.
Okay, we're going to say goodbye to Werner now. Bye, Werner.
Bye,
Thanks,
Werner.
Werner.
Bye.
There.
And Dave is going to get Craig lined up for police. But in the meantime, we're going to page 77.
70 what?
77, 77. Remember that famous spy?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, no, that was 007. Sorry. This is 007.
You can be the new famous spy, 77.
7. Well, I can't be much of a spy if everyone knows my name. So, page 77 is our legal fees budget. So this covers all legal fees for the town. These categories are estimates, and then we track them in actual to see where they are. I would tell you that in the year of a pandemic, there were 2 people you needed to take in the bunker with you, and it was your lawyer and your IT specialist. So we have spent a fair amount on legal fees, and this year we are estimating that we should be able to remain flat with legal fees. Does anybody have any questions on that? If not, I'm going to go to page 79, which is our insurance. And Jen Lord's here to answer all the tough questions on insurance. So you can see at the top, we have our benefits insurance. So that's the retirement health savings plan and the HRA and fees. That's for townwide for all employees. We used to have them in individual departments, but they varied so much that it was easier to budget as a congregate here. And then the other insurance line items are our workers' comp, unemployment, general liability, our fleet insurance, and our public officials liability insurance. Most of our insurance packages right now, we bid it out a year and a half, 2 years ago, Jen. And we went to the Maine Municipal Risk Pool. We also have a medical liability policy with Kennebunk Savings for our public health nurses and now our town doctor. Although you'll see some changes in those accounts, so we're seeing some increases in some of those accounts, we're also seeing a decrease in liability. So we share these property and liability insurances with our enterprise funds. So remember, our enterprise funds are our wastewater fund, our Cape Porpoise Pier Fund, Government Wharf, and Dock Square. And so we do attribute those based on what's going on and advice from our insurance company on where those costs should go. So you're seeing some readjustment of those for this fiscal year. But in total, the difference is $582.
So,
Yes,
so
John.
Lori, we didn't decrease the liability insurance. It's just been shifted elsewhere. Is that what I understood?
Yeah, so more of the liability insurance is being attributed to wastewater for example. Anything I forgot, Jen? Yep, Alan?
Is it you that reviews or Jen that reviews the workman's comp assignments through the plan?
Yep, Jen, do you want to talk about that?
Yes, we do. They the last 2 years they've been doing the audit remotely, and then they send us a report, and we go through that and make sure it all looks like it's all lined up properly, and that people are in the proper classes.
I had many problems with workman's comp with a large group of employees, and they were classifying office workers as field workers, and I mean, it was a mess.
Yes.
And I ended up getting a huge settlement from them. So that's good. I'm glad you're looking at it every year anyway.
We do. Thanks.
Yeah.
Any other questions on insurance? I'm not seeing any, so let's move to page 81. Page 81 is our community development budget. And what community development is kind of an odd account. It houses anything, if you think of it like this, that has to do with public transparency and communication. So this houses the funding for like this remote virtual meeting, the salaries associated with our audiovisual crew who assist us with the internet that allows the streaming and the broadcasting to take place. Our newsletter that we send out twice a year, and our website cost. So you can see that there is a sizable increase there, $4,800. We've, in this virtual format, you know, it takes a lot more staff ability to make these meetings happen. And of course, we're supporting even smaller meetings than in the past when people might have just gathered, and costs associated with that. And so that's why you're seeing an increase in the community development budget. We also have had the opportunity, we purchased when we upgraded our equipment to do more scheduling of shows. And so Michael Davis and David Powell, our AV crew, have been working to gather more programming that we'll have on our local access channel, and they're really excited about that opportunity and working with our library and other local partners to do more of that in the future. So it says my internet connection is unstable, so if I freeze, I'll be back. But I'm going to turn you over to Craig Sanford to discuss the police budget, which is on page 91,
Hi, Chief.
right under the public safety tab.
Good evening, everybody. Boy, as I look at the screen, you folks look like you've gotten younger, and I'm the one that aged this year.
Oh, boy.
That you did.
What a year.
My gosh.
What a year. So, welcome to the police department's budget. I'll just review, some of you folks may not be aware that, you know, the Kennebunkport Police Department has 14 full-time police officers. There's myself and Deputy Chief Moses that manage the officers and the operation, along with my assistant Carol, who is basically the savior for all of us. She keeps us all in line. I have 9 patrol function officers that handle all the day-to-day calls for service, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Sometimes, you know, because we're so small, we don't have more than just one officer on at a time. It's not always favorable, but you know, that's the world we live in right now. I have 3 SROs. Those SROs are in the Consolidated School, the Mildred Day School over in Arundel, and also the middle school of the Kennebunks. Each one of those officers, 75% of their salary and benefits are paid by the school district, and 25% of the remaining 25% are picked up by the taxpayers of Kennebunkport. They come back to me during our busy season in the summer, and they supplement the patrol function, which is very, very helpful because, as you can imagine, when we quadruple our population, and I'm really wondering what this summer will bring, if everybody's ready to let loose, what we're going to have for business. So it could be very busy for us. And then I have 1 full-time detective that is our court officer, as well as you know, he carries on with the major complex investigations and also supplements the patrol division as they need. In this year's budget, I have a large increase in the health benefits because I took on 2 new employees from another agency, 2 left. And I brought 2 on experienced officers, and they both chose to take the family plan. So that was a big increase. And I've also, you know, this last year, because of COVID and budget freezes and everything, we chose not to fill a supervisor position that I had outstanding in a cost-cutting measure. But I really need to bring that person, that position back into fruition because, you know, supervision on the late and evening shifts are very important, and you know, we need that supervisory position out there because it's very, very important. So it's not a new position, but that's going to allow me to fill that position. And I think I had 1 small other increase in the vehicle maintenance budget because we took on 1 extra vehicle a year or so ago, and we're keeping our cruises a little bit longer, and you know, costs associated with fixing a car we all know is not cheap. So I'm asking just a little bit more in that line item. But other than that, I'll take any questions. Come on, Mr. Beard, don't disappoint me.
How are we doing by comparing to our neighbors?
So in 2019, we had a little hiccup. We had 5 burglaries in town, which is you know, probably an increase of 3 that we normally have, but it's kind of a little misnomer. We had somebody that was choosing to go into new construction and actually spray paint on walls during the construction phase. So we never were able to catch that character, but that kind of brought our stats up a little bit. And then we had an increase in thefts in 2019, and it was associated, if you remember, we had the mailbox thefts that were going on, but we did catch those individuals. So, it was good police work on our part, but that was the increase that we saw in 2019. But other than that, Mr. Beard, we're good to go.
Good, thank you.
Every town should be so lucky. Thank you.
Absolutely.
I know.
I have
Exactly.
an excellent staff that does a great job. Yes, sir. Go
Right.
ahead.
If I have a question about your radio technology, I think last budget we were talking about that. I don't know if you're going to start incorporating the funding needs for the technology. We were saying that when you go out down to Goose Rocks or whatever, the radios that don't work as well and the antennas, etc.
Yep, it's in the capital plan, sir, and
Okay.
I'm sure we'll discuss it then, but the plan continues on, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for the inquiry. Any other questions?
Got a bunch of empty spray cans I need to get rid of. Is there a,
I'll see you tomorrow. No
So
other
do you,
questions?
do you want to move on to page 101, which is the communications budget?
There.
So communications, we have 4 full-time communication specialists, and then my assistant fills in 1 day a week to cover all the shifts. It's a miracle that we are able to do that when you consider you need 5 people to cover a 24-hour shift. When you consider vacations and sick time and things of that nature, those folks work a lot of hours to keep that function going. The increase that I've got in the budget this year is due to our contract with York County, not York County, York PD. York PD provides us with our PSAP answering point, as well as provides the service for emergency medical dispatching and also emergency fire dispatching, which is required by the state of Maine. And there's no way around that. We need that service, and it's very important to keep people safe. Any questions? No death by PowerPoint, sorry. I had a 51 PowerPoint presentation for the town manager, so I thought I'd save you. No questions?
No.
Chief,
Sorry.
go ahead, Dave. Chief, the arrangement with York is still working quite well?
Yes, sir. I haven't received any complaints. And anytime we have a situation, I have a very good relationship with those folks down there, and they are willing to help us out. I've been able to actually have our radio communications installed there as a backup in case something bad should happen. I had the fire department and EMS installed, as well as the police departments. So they have our radio frequencies down there as well. So.
Chief, can we also get you to just, on page 123 is the emergency management budget, and Chief Sanford is our emergency management director. And it's a small amount of $1,500 that we reserve, but do you want to just discuss that?
So that's something that we came into agreement with the towns of Arundel and Kennebunk to support our mission of trying to provide a shelter if needed over at the middle school in Kennebunks. That small amount is used to buy and stage cots, blankets and things of that nature if need be, and purchase a trailer to store the things. As you can imagine, emergency management has been very, very busy this year, especially in having the joy of dealing with FEMA and trying to recoup some of our costs. Has been a great joy for me and continues on to this day. But again, it's a small amount, but it does help out our situation and our joint effort with the other communities.
If I have one more question.
Sir.
if we see a big summer season where people are like dying to get out and you see a dramatic increase in population over the summer, do you have arrangements with neighboring towns as far as, helping out as far as police support or protection?
So, state law, we already have something in place that allows for me to call a neighboring community, the state police, the sheriff's department, Biddeford, you name it. They could come if I requested it. Let's say if we had, some major issue. In my previous days, I would go from Sanford to Old Orchard Beach to help out. So we do have state law that way, but I also have an MOU with Kennebunk that if we need some help, they can come over here, and conversely, I can go over there. So we do have those things in place, sir.
Any other questions for Chief Sanford?
Nope, all set.
Thanks, folks.
Thank you,
Thanks,
sir.
Chief.
Thank you, Chief.
Stay safe.
Thank you.
We are going to bring up Chief Everett to talk about fire. So we can go to page 107. Hi, Chief Everett.
Good evening. So I do have some slides for you, just because I want to keep it different. Come on, go to share. There you go.
He's showcasing his new technology skills.
Yeah, one thing Lori's knows very well is how technologically challenged I am. So I do have to get rid of one thing.
I can relate to that statement.
Yeah, we all can.
Yeah. So I just had for the newer people on the boards, just a little rundown of what our department is. Obviously, the fire department. We're about a 75-member call department, and what that means is that we come from home or work whenever there's a call. There's not people in the stations to answer calls all the time. We do have a full-time fire administrator, and I work about on average 32 hours a week or so. And other than that, that's it. Everybody else comes from home or their jobs. Looking at the goals I set for the department, I wanted to keep the budget obviously as tight as I could. I didn't want to add any projects emerging from COVID. I wanted to have as little impact as possible that way, because like the question that was asked about the radio system, obviously the fire department is very vested in that, and that's where, I would like to see our money go. But I do have systems in place to keep going with the preventative maintenance types programs I have on my vehicles and our stations and things like that. Our call volume has always been pretty steady over the years, not going up too fast or anything like that. So I'm confident we can do what's needed to be done in this budget. Did the screen change for everybody?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So again, real quick, and I know this is some repetitive for people that have been on the boards for longer, but I'm required to go by a 2-in, 2-out rule. Whenever I'm going to put somebody into, you see that where it says IDLH, that means immediate danger to life and health. If I'm going to put somebody in a position like that, whether it's a fire or a carbon monoxide leak, things of that nature, I have to have 4 qualified people on the scene before I can do that. The only time you don't have to do this is if somebody is in imminent danger. I could go in myself, or whoever gets there first could go in themselves. But if there aren't any lives in there, we're met by the family, everybody's out, that type of thing, and accounted for, I need to have these people on scene at a minimum, or we can get in a world of hurt legally. And that's just the 29 CFR, that's the federal regulations. Well, so this is a federal law. So looking at the 2 in, 2 out that we had over the last 3 years, you can see our calls in the red have stayed pretty consistent. I took calls that I thought might be required, like a CO call, a fire alarm, things that could turn into an IDLH, not a car accident or a wires down call or anything like that. A little bit of a misnomer, I think, because of COVID, and I know we're talking about that an awful lot, is where it shows the 69% of the times in 2020 that we made it. I think it's because we had so many more people working from home that were able to respond during the day that normally, under a normal year, wouldn't have been able to. So this one just shows kind of an average of based on quarters of the year, what I got for the pink is interior qualified. So you see we had a couple quarters where we're just under 4. 4 again is that absolute minimum I need to have. And then the blue columns are my exterior qualified people, which are, just as important to have. And then an average of what we got per call. So we're really doing pretty well in that realm, having, in my next slide here, having an average of 11 firefighters respond to each call. That's really pretty good. Again, I think COVID has some to do with that. We managed over the whole course of the year to be just over that 4, but it doesn't mean every single call. So there are times when I'm going to have to call mutual aid to get those numbers that I need. We can't get away from aging, so we're an older department. At the end of 2019, our average age was 53, and so in 2019, I did nothing to help the average go down. And over a third of the department is over 60. This is showing the same thing, just a slightly different, where over here on this side are all our people that are over 60. So I have 38% of people that are 60 or older in the department. So we definitely are not getting any younger. Our average age at the end of last year went up a year, and we still had about the same 39% that were over 60.
Excuse me.
And that's the same as before. We didn't change over into the 60 plus at all. If anything, we're going to keep moving people into it. Another thing that goes against us is a little bit is the times of the day we have the calls. They're mostly when people during the day, during the week, when we're at work. Other people are at work and can't respond. 2019, 71% of our calls were between 6 in the morning and 6 at night. Last year, it dropped a little bit to 65% in that time period. But again, that's when we're most vulnerable. This next slide is showing the calls by days of the week. And the interesting thing, again, I believe it's COVID related, is when you look at the blue, the right-hand column of each day, that the low was 30 and the high was 37 calls. So that's pretty steady. And I think, again, people could come from home, and that, kind of skews our numbers a little bit. And here is we have about, like I said, 75 people in the department. 57 of them live in town, but only 25 of them work in town. So if they're usually out of town, maybe they couldn't respond to something of any significance. Again, I've got 9 that live in Kennebunk, but only 3 that work in Kennebunk or the port. So it's a bigger thing, and this is nothing that we're not all dealing with as far as town. Kennebunk's dealing with the same types of issues, personnel-wise. And that's all I have there. I will stop sharing, even though my mother told me to always share. And we'll obviously entertain any questions that anybody may have.
Jay, can you just talk a little bit about the reason why those slides are important and why we're tracking that data and where we are with that 4? It's because that's kind of the bar, the minimum.
Right. We're tracking that to see where we fall each year. And this is a good year because I don't have per diems in the budget. And that's what we're tracking it for, is to see when we get to that point where if those numbers non-COVID are starting to fall, that maybe that's what we're going to need to do, is start putting on per diem. And I looked into that for last year, I believe it was, and that would be adding about $160,000 or so for my budget for only 2 people during the day, during the week. So I still would need 2 to come from home to meet that magic 2 in, 2 out. But that's why we're continue to keep looking at those numbers.
Good job with all the graphics. Congratulations.
I never realized how stressful the technology for this it makes me. It makes me crazy. I need to get my 20-year-old daughter to help me all the time.
You're not the only one.
Any questions for fire?
No, again, we're so lucky to be able to rely on the type of fire department we've have had for so many years.
Right.
I mean, we're probably one of the few towns, certainly in the state, that gets away with a predominantly volunteer fire department. We're very lucky.
I absolutely want to keep it the community-based resource it is for as long as we possibly can.
Yep. Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
All right.
So if you go to page 125, Craig is here, so he can come back on screen. And this is the Animal Control Officer budget. Chief, do you want to just talk about animal control, what we do?
So we actually share an animal control officer with several other municipalities, and we pay this individual a fee. And it really took us looking at the number of calls that we have that it's impossible for us to handle and needs that specialized service. And it's worked out quite well so far. If the town continues to grow, we might have to look at something different. For right now, it works for us, though.
Yep, you can see in the budget that fiscal year 20, the animal control budget was actually up around 15,000, and it's now at a little under 12. So it's one of the few times we're able to bring that cost down.
Yep.
Any questions on animal control?
Good night, folks.
Good night.
Good night.
He was quick to leave, wasn't he? So page 127 is the harbor master budget. So we have 2 harbor masters in the town of Kennebunkport. We have one that we share through an interlocal agreement with the town of Kennebunk that patrols the Kennebunk River. And we have another that is harbor master and pier manager in Cape Porpoise Harbor, Chris Mayo. So in this harbor master budget, you will see under salaries and wages, that is 20% of Chris's salary and benefits. So 20% goes towards the general fund, which is our harbor master budget. The other 80% goes to Cape Porpoise Pier, and that is an enterprise fund, and that is paid for by pier members and pier users. If you look at the second page, at page 128, that shows the river harbor master cost. So the town of Kennebunk actually employs the river harbor master, and we pay half of the cost of both equipment, materials, and salary And so you can see that's about $20,000 for this coming year. And we pay that bill directly to the town of Kennebunk. And then they administer the mooring registrations in the Kennebunk River and the payroll. So that's our harbor master budget.
Right?
Lori, what changed between 2020, 21, and 22 to make it go from 25,000 up to 40,000? Lori?
Yep,
I was looking at the bottom line there.
From 2020 to 20 versus from 2021. You can see the salaries in Harbor Master in the 2020 budget were not accounted for. The Cape Porpoise Harbor Master wasn't accounted in the general fund. I think it was actually missed that year. But in the past, we had paid a portion out of here, but it was a smaller portion, and we've upped it to 20%.
That's the difference.
Question, Laurie.
Yep.
Arundel has some use of the Kennebunk River and probably some moorings way up country and so forth. Have they been asked, or do they pay anything towards the harbor master's salary?
They were originally part of the interlocal agreement. I think that was established back in was it the late 80s or 90s?
Somewhere along in there.
Yeah. Seems like yesterday, doesn't it? And so they were originally a part of that. They ended up leaving the interlocal agreement, so it's just between the town of Kennebunk and Kennebunkport. We do not patrol up where Arundel is or assist with their moorings or anything that they do up in Arundel. We stick basically from the bridge down.
But they are right across the creek, as it were, from Kennebunk.
Yeah. They don't participate in the harbor master's salary or benefits.
Thank you. Getting a free ride for the school, Dan. They can't afford to pay for a harbor master.
Why did I know you were going to say that, Ed?
I don't know. It just came out of me.
And Ed, I don't blame you. Anyway.
Neither do I.
So that's all we plan to cover tonight. I don't know if people have questions or feedback for us or things you'd like more information on for your next meeting.
Laura, I think that the job that you and the crew have done looks really very complete and well done. Thank you.
Amazing amount of work.
You're here.
Absolutely.
I would have to add, Laurie, that the professional quality of the slides that you guys present is really outstanding. I mean, it really captures, so we don't have to look at all the detail in this big book that you sent out to me.
Sure. And if you guys ever want any of those slides, we don't want to overwhelm you with information, but certainly if you want any of it, we can email it to you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd love to get a copy of your intro slides, or those slides. I was screen snapping some of it, so that
sure.
Have those. Thanks.
I wanted to too, but I was afraid I'd disconnect myself, so I didn't.
Great job altogether.
Thank you, Laurie. Everyone.
I'll have Tracy send those out tomorrow to everyone.
April, would you like to adjourn your meeting?
Sure. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We're in favor.
We're done.
Mr. Chairman, I move we adjourn the Board of Selectmen.
Second.
I have a first, I have a second. I'm going to take a roll call to adjourn the meeting. Pat?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Ed?
Aye.
Sheila?
Aye.
Alan says aye. Motion carries.
Thank you, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Budget
See you
Board, for
next
showing.
week.
Yeah.
The next
See you.